Looking at me now, people would assume that my life has always been easy. But the truth is, no one's life has been easy. Whether rich or poor, strong or weak, famous or unknown. The truth is, all of us face life circumstances that are difficult. And some may be better at hiding it than others, but this truth still remains. Pain is a reality that affects everyone, and I'm no exception. So my story starts in 1998 when I was born in Brockton, Massachusetts. Not long after I was born, like in many cases, I was abandoned by my biological father. And as a young child, I was left wondering why a father would abandon their own son. I know there are some of you watching this right now who have gone through the same experience. And I just want you to know that I feel for you. You're not alone. A few years after my biological father left me and my mom and older brother, we moved to Florida, along with my mom's newlywed husband and infant daughter. I remember one day in 2003, we stayed with some relatives at my aunt's house. And I remember feeling so tired. I remember laying on the floor, trying to take a nap in the kitchen, and my brother trying to wake me up. Eventually I found a couch that I could take a nap on. Usually I was an energetic 5-year-old boy who couldn't sit still, but now all that energy was gone, and it was replaced with a deep need to just find somewhere to crash. Soon my mom noticed that I was sleeping on the couch, and she also noticed something else, that I had very high fevers. I remember waking up and finding myself in a bathtub with cold water to try to bring down the fever. Something was obviously wrong, so my mom took me to the ER. And after waiting in the waiting room for several hours, as is the case for most people, I was finally able to get checked out. And after several blood tests, which I did not like, a doctor came in with the results. The doctor said, "Your son has mono, which can be treated." And my mom was about to breathe a sigh of relief when the doctor continued. But as we were looking at the test results, we noticed something else more serious. The doctor looked at my mom and said, "Ma'am, your son has Duchenne's muscular dystrophy." She was like, "What does that mean?" He said, "I'm sorry. That means that one day, your son will never walk again." Fast forward 5 years, and I was now no longer that rambunctious kid who couldn't sit still. I was now bound to the constraints of a wheelchair. Growing up, I was told that there was a God, but as my body grew weaker, I began to doubt that that was true. And even if there was a God, I didn't really think that he loved me. And I decided that if God's love didn't stop me from becoming wheelchair bound, then he wasn't worth believing in. I wanted none of it. Video games soon became my life. It was, as it is to most people, a way to numb my mind from the reality of my pain. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the nagging feeling of pain deep down in my soul. That's the thing about distractions like video games. It removes your mind from the problems, but the problems are still there. The pain still remains. I was distracting myself, but deep down, the pain just kept growing, and I soon fell into depression. Eventually, the depressive thoughts grew so strong that I just wanted the pain to end. So I decided that I would take my life. When I was about 14 years old, I found a bottle of pills within my reach that I could take my life with. and I began unscrewing it, but I didn't know at the time how to open a pill bottle. So I kept trying to unscrew it, and it wouldn't open because I didn't know that you had to push down on it and spin it. And that one mishap turned into my greatest blessing. That moment of desperation forced me to rethink about what I was doing and all the people that I would hurt by taking my life. I decided against it right then and there. Not long after I almost took my life, on Christmas I received a present. It was a camouflage imitation leather-bound Bible. I know this may sound weird, but that night, instead of playing my DS as I normally did, I began reading this Bible. And as I read it, the pain that I felt deep down inside began to fade away, and I no longer had those suicidal thoughts anymore. I'd like to say that since then I lived happily ever after, but you and I both know that it usually doesn't work out that way. Soon I went back to playing video games and spent countless hours in front of a TV screen, and I began to fall back into negative thinking. I still struggled with why God would allow my disability, but this time my resention didn't lead me to ignore God, but instead to cry out to Him, why? Little did I know that my small desperate pleas would soon be answered. From childhood, I had always been fond of reading. And in the midst of my confusion, one of the books I read was a book called Unstoppable by a man who had no limbs. And as I read, I began seeing that God was using His incredible weakness as a way to display His strength. I began to see that God's strength can be made perfect through my weakness. And I wanted to follow His example. I wanted to be that kind of person who can use my disability as a way to make a difference. I began to ask God that He would use my weakness for a greater purpose. Eventually, God answered my prayer in an unexpected way. I know this story may sound silly or untrue, but this really did happen. One night I had a dream. And in this dream, I saw a girl who was sitting on a bed crying. And then the dream transitioned to me writing a letter. Then it transitioned back to her reading the letter I'd written, and her tears started fading away. And in that moment, I heard a voice saying, "Bobby, this is a good work." I woke up the next morning with an urge to write a letter of encouragement to someone. Then I wrote another, and then another. And every time I wrote a letter, I felt a strong conviction that this is what God wanted me to do with my life. Encourage the discouraged with the hope that I found in Christ. On July 1st, 2015, when I was 17 years old, I began a ministry called Sitting with Hope. The reason I called it that is because I knew that even though I was sitting every day, I had hope that one day I will walk again. And one day all the pain will go away forever. Every day I have this hope that God is with me. And He said Himself, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." My hope and my mission in life is that you would have this peace that I have found in Christ. My hope and my mission in life is that people like you would have this peace and this hope that I have in Christ. He loves you and He's waiting to take you in His arms and let you know that you're going to be okay. Don't give up, my friend. Come to your Father, and He will hold you through the storms that you face in life. Hey, this is coming from someone who's spent a decade of his life in a wheelchair, who's saying that even though I'm sitting every day in this life, I'm sitting with hope.